train don't run here anymore. Not since back before the war, when all the street lamps were lit with kerosene. The valley floated in between heaven and earth. But kids still walk home after school, and church on Sunday still the rule. And summer sunsets still set the clouds aflame. In every blush I see your name, first and last. But the men can still be cruel. They lay out drinking by the pool. They lie in wait for someone they can tame. And every one of them's the same, first and last. You don't belong to anyone, not any small town son, not least of all to me. All your roads lead far away into a brighter day, maybe somewhere by the sea. Someplace far away from me and this town. One day in May there's a parade. God Bless America gets played. We take our pictures, then we turn to go inside to find somewhere we can hide from our crimes. And when the world puts out a call, ain't no one standing there at all. Are we a people lost, afraid, along for the ride, carried away on the tide of these times? You don't belong to anyone, not any small town son, not least of all to me. All your roads lead far away into a brighter day, maybe somewhere by the sea, someplace far away from me and this town. The train don't run here anymore, not since back before this war. And all the street lamps in the world can't shine a light that's bright enough to quiet all of this dark. You don't come round here no more, so I don't know what I'm asking for. I need to shake off this sleep and turn to fight, so everyone will have the right to make their mark. That's what I'm asking for. You are what I'm asking for. You are what I'm asking for. Oh, America, I'm asking for.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm Katie McQuage-Lucas, your ministerial intern, and my pronouns are she and hers. I am glad you are here with us today on this Martin Luther King Sunday, and so today I will call you in with his words. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm that mutuality together on Sunday mornings, and we do it all week long in our work together and through our connections to each other. And so this morning, know that we are bound together in love and in spirit. And so come, let us worship together.
In the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, we gather this day. May the flame we now kindle be to us a symbol of the holiness we seek. We are Unitarian Universalists, the church of the open mind, the loving heart, and helping hands.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our service this morning. My name is Brooke Martino, and I am a member of the Worship Arts team. I am so grateful that we have this way to connect and worship together, even while we must remain physically apart. We strive to make our mission statement even more relevant now, to be a welcoming place to nurture and explore individual spirituality, building loving community, and heal the world. In this strange and uncomfortable time, you are free to be yourself with all of your fears and uncertainties. You are welcome in this place, in this time, and are invited to virtually be together this morning. If you are watching during our initial broadcast, please join us after the service in our Zoom Fellowship Hall. The link can be found in the UUCR Weekly Updates newsletter. Use this time to connect and share conversation with one another. Finally, I again want to say welcome. You absolutely belong here today, and I, along with our whole Sunday team, are so glad that you have joined us. Now let's sit back, take a deep breath, feel each other's presence and love, even from a distance, and truly enjoy today's service.
Good morning. On this weekend, as we honor the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King, and as we await the inauguration of a new president during this pandemic, let's sing the hymn that was King's favorite, Precious Lord, Take My Hand. The text, written by Reverend Thomas Dorsey after the death of his wife and child during childbirth, uses the traditional Christian names for the divine, but its message of the longing for comfort and guidance during difficult times is for all of us. It's in our hymnal, number 199, so please sing along with this powerful gospel classic, Precious Lord. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. When my way grows drear, precious Lord, linger near. When my life is almost gone, hear my cry, hear my call, hold my hand, lest I fall. Take my hand, precious Lord, and lead me home. When the darkness appears and the night draws near, and the day is past and gone, at the river I stand, guide my feet, hold my hand. Take my hand, precious Lord, and lead me home.
Good morning. My name is Sally Lieberman, and my pronouns are she and her. Thank you to members of our Plowman family for lighting our chalice, and for leading our children's affirmation this morning. On this Sunday of Dr. King's birthday weekend, we remember days when we would meet with friends in town for a day of service. We'd meet with friends from the Congregational Church and the Methodist Church, and neighbors from Reading and surrounding communities. This year, while we're meeting online, we're going to spend some time learning about the Reading Food Pantry, which is a shared ministry of the churches and the church leaders here in Reading, and that includes us. The Reading Food Pantry serves 120 plus families each month, and it's housed in the big white church on Reading Common, the Old South Methodist Church. Stay tuned for the video, and let's look for ways that we can support the pantry, be part of something bigger than ourselves. Dr. King told us, everyone can be great because everyone can serve. Let's go into service together. The Reading Food Pantry began with a few bags of food tucked into the minister's closet downtown on the Reading Common at the Old South Methodist Church. We're seeing a video of that church and its food pantry today. We see bags and bins and boxes holding items donated from folks in our communities to stock these shelves and make food and essential items available to anyone who comes here who is in need. On these shelves, you may see some things that you might like. Maybe you like stuffing. Maybe you like pasta. If you look closely, you might even see some cat and dog food. You see folks who have a hard time filling their own food orders when they go shopping for food may not also be able to provide food for their companion animals. The Reading Food Pantry is in the fellowship hall of this church where folks meet for coffee and hot chocolate and goldfish. But of course, now that we're not meeting in person, this fellowship hall is full of food and essential items that help people stay well. The pantry serves over 120 families each month. And now that we are practicing safe distancing, folks either walk up or drive up outside the back of the church, and they look for the food pantry sign, and they're able to select items off of a shopping list, and a volunteer will come in and fill their order. As we look through the items here at the food pantry, I wonder if you see some things that you'd like to eat, some things that you'd like to find if you were searching for food that you needed. You might also see some things that you wouldn't like to eat. And if you were a client here, you could choose what would match your needs and your taste the best. The folks you're seeing in the background are all volunteers. Some of them have been here for 30 plus years, making this food pantry possible. You might remember that our church collects for the Reading Food Pantry, and we have collection bins outside either entrance to our sanctuary. On this Dr. King weekend, we're reminded of Dr. King's words. Everyone can be great because everyone can serve. He reminded us to find power in being part of something greater than ourselves. The Reading Food Pantry is supported by all of the churches here in town, and that includes us. In the next weeks, we'll ask the food pantry what they most need. You see, Christmas has come and gone. And during the holiday season, folks tend to think about giving and helping out programs here in our community that serve other people. But Christmas has come and gone, and it is said that it is now that the true work begins. As we learn a bit more about the food pantry in the next weeks, we'll do our own collections. Stay tuned for more details.
And now, my beloved friends, will you please join me in prayer? Spirit of life, Spirit of love, Spirit of justice, in whom we live, move, and have our being. We have come together this morning from so many different places, carrying so many things in our hearts. Many of us are anxious, many of us are hopeful, and many of us are both at the same time. We come together seeking to fuel that flame of hope, to remember that we are not alone. We come together knowing our shortcomings and hoping we can be our best selves and do good in this world. We seek courage and vision, strength and commitment. May we find those things in ourselves, in each other, and in the sacred space and time we have made here together. May we always be open to you, O Spirit of life, whether we seek you in the beauty of the world, in the care of our relationships, or in our own experiences of the holy. Renew our hearts and our spirits. Be balm for our anxiety and pain. Lift us up and inspire us so that we might know we are whole, if imperfect, and that we have within us all that we need to do your work of justice in this world. Amen, and may it be so.
See the difference in each other. Never see how we're the same. Take up arms against our brothers. No one ever takes the blame. When the man has come to draw that line between us, we all just choose a side. Just stay quiet, yeah. One voice can make a whole lot of noise. One voice singing loud, but a full-blown choir can set the whole thing higher. Make the song sound better. Singing one voice together. Sometimes I do not love my neighbor. Sometimes I feel like throwing stones. I'm sure that he'd return the favor. We'd end up with broken bones. The time has come to set aside our differences. We can sing in harmony. Let it be, yeah, yeah. One voice can make a whole lot of noise. One voice voice together. There's no left and right, there's no red and blue, black and white, there's just me and you. In a world of warfare, peace is bad for business, but there's no money to be made. In forgiveness, yeah, one voice can make a whole lot of noise. One voice singing out, yeah, but a full-blown choir can set the world on fire. This song goes on forever. One voice, yeah, yeah. One voice, yeah. One voice, yeah. One voice, join hands around the world, singing one voice together.
Our reading this morning is from Beyond Vietnam, A Time to Break Silence by Reverend Martin Luther King. We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. Procrastination is still the thief of time. Life often leaves us standing bare, naked, and dejected with a lost opportunity. The tide in the affairs of men does not remain at the flood, it ebbs. We may cry out desperately for time to pause in her passage, but time is deaf to every single plea and rushes on. Over the bleached bones and jumbled residue of numerous civilizations are written the pathetic words, too late. There is an invisible book of life that faithfully records our vigilance or our neglect. The moving finger writes, and having writ, moves on. We still have a choice today, non-violent coexistence or violent co-annihilation.
In the final episode of The Good Lord Bird, the TV miniseries about the radical abolitionist John Brown, he finds that his boldest plans are falling apart largely because of his own erratic decisions. One of his white hostages that he's taken, a Colonel Lewis Washington, turns to his own black coachman Jim, who's thrown in his lot with John Brown's ill-fated insurrection. "That's the man you think will save your people?" he asks. "He's not going to save us," Jim responds. "He's trying to save you." He's trying to save you. The idea that a radical like John Brown wasn't trying to save the slaves, but instead trying to save the white people from the sin of slavery and racism. That's a different way of thinking about John Brown and all that motivated him. Now, the TV show The Good Lord Bird is based on a book by the same name by James McBride. It's not a historical book. It's historical fiction. But as my father-in-law once said to me, if history is written by the winners, then fiction is written by the losers. So even though the show and the book aren't historical retelling of the life and death of John Brown, there's still some truth in that story. Now, of course, John Brown had hoped that the violence that he perpetrated would inspire slaves and others into an armed rebellion, which would free the nation from the sin of slavery. The idea that one great violent act would spur others into rebellion around issues of race has been a part of America for a very long time, though in more recent years it has been the fodder of racists. And I am certainly sure that those who took part in the insurrection of January 6th did so because they hoped to inspire other white people and certainly other white supremacists to rise up. However, what is true is that violence is met by more violence, either in the name of suppression or in the name of support. It has left me angry, the events of January 6th. I have been angry, and there's a lot to be angry about. But it hasn't led me to violence, and I certainly hope it hasn't led you to violence or even to violent thoughts. But let's get back to the idea that was put forward in that TV show, that what John Brown was doing was not trying to save the slaves, but try to save white people, try to at least save our nation while freeing the slaves. That's a totally different understanding of what is needed to be done, isn't it? Right? It's not about accepting former slaves into the nation as it was in the mid-19th century. It's about remaking society. Right? One of the problems that we've often had is that we, the white status quo, hope that through all of our progressive policies, we would open a door and allow Black and brown Americans into this system that we have, and that would make them happy. And it even made us think that they should be happy because this system is so great. And the problem is that we are either unaware or unwilling to admit that the system was designed to oppress people of color. It reminds me of a story that my mother tells. My mother, who grew up in Belfast, Northern Ireland, how every Christmas a family member would try to feed her a slice of Christmas cake, that really dense fruit cake with like 1.5 inches of marzipan on top. And every year, when someone was trying to feed her a slice of Christmas cake, her mother would say to whoever it was, "Christmas cake makes Margaret sick." And then the response, as my mom says, the response was always, "Well, that was last year. Let's see how she does now." And not surprisingly, my mother would eat it and then throw up. And in the same way that her aunts who would feed her this cake that they loved, were shocked when my mom was sick, we who have benefited from this culture of white supremacy should not be shocked when people of color don't do well in it. Right? The answer isn't give Margaret more cake. The answer is don't give Margaret any cake at all. Give her an orange instead. What is needed for us here today to do is to have a radical reimagining of our society. This is not about granting minority cultures special status within the system that we have, but it's about us recognizing that things can be better. And so what we need to do right now is to recognize the truth before us, that all the world is in a difficult place right now. And I'm not just talking about American politics. I'm talking about global issues, right? This is not just about fixing what's wrong in our country. It's about saving the environment so that we will have a planet to hold our arguments on, right? This is about us using empathy as a measuring stick, so that even the poorest nations, even nations like Iran and North Korea, can get the COVID vaccine. This is about making a world that is changed by love. The sixth principle of the Unitarian Universalist Association is the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. This is what we want. This is who we are as Unitarian Universalists. We are a faith always willing to create new ways of being in the world. You know, when no other denomination was ordaining women, we ordained Olympia Brown in 1863. When other denominations were throwing clergy out who identified as gay and lesbian, we admitted and acknowledged that a minister named James Stoll He came out as gay in 1969. And he kept his role as a minister. We ordained the first openly transgender person in 1988. We, Unitarian Universalists, have historically acknowledged the breadth of the human condition, and we have created ways out of love to recognize and celebrate that. When people say you can't do that, that's not possible, we have imagined different worlds. I'm not saying that we are perfect. I'm not saying that Unitarian Universalists are perfect. We don't always see things for how they are because we are still children of this culture, of this system. We are fish swimming in a water who cannot see the water. You know, the Buddha once said in talking about the Dharma, he said, "It is clearly visible, but it is hard to see." It is clearly visible, but it is hard to see. And that's not just our problem. That is a problem that people around the globe have. You know, for 13 years, at the end of the 90s and into the 2000s, for 13 years, a white supremacist gang terrorized Germany. Their actions murdered 10 people. They robbed 14 banks and set off at least 2 nail bombs. And the police in Germany blamed the victims because they said it was the work of Turkish gangsters. It was only when these white supremacists slipped up that the truth came out. Just a few days ago, PBS reported that the police here in the US didn't recognize the chatter by white supremacists leading up to the attack on the Capitol on January 6th because for a few reasons. First, well, it was in plain sight. And because these folks were mostly white. And also that these folks held many of the same views that these police officers did. It is clearly visible, but it is hard to see. We are seeing things. We are recognizing things that have been there forever. And all of a sudden, they are coming into focus. In the Christian scriptures, there is a story where Jesus has to heal a blind man twice. The first time he heals the man says, "I can see, but the people look like trees walking." So Jesus had to go back and heal him again. Wow, that guy must have been really blind. And maybe that's what's going on in America. Even though through all of the work for racial justice that has occurred throughout the centuries, the wars, the violence, the sit-ins, the marches, the rallies, the laws that have been changed, maybe through all that work, all of that struggle, we've only gotten to the place where people are seeing each other as trees. And we think to ourselves, wow, that country must really be racist. That country, this country, needs another blessing so that we can see the truth. So that we can stop seeing each other as inanimate objects. So we can stop seeing each other as the other. So we can stop seeing each other as trees that are walking. Now, I guess these things are happening in part because of this pandemic. We're starting to see these things as they are. Now, even though I'm a theist, I certainly don't believe that God created this pandemic for us to slow down long enough to recognize the white supremacist culture in which we live. It has been obvious for a very long time, but we who have benefited from it were only too happy not to see it. But now it is time for us to act. It is time for us to imagine a different world, a world shaped by love and not by violence, a world where black people and brown people and the people who have been othered are centered and not us. One of the things about John Brown is that he did all of those things without asking the slaves what they wanted. In fact, when he did speak to African Americans or Africans who were stolen from their land, they weren't all that crazy about his ideas. But we need to imagine a different world where we all get to hear. We all get a chance to share our voice and have our voice heard. We want a world that is safe. We want a world with a strong democracy that affirms the dignity of all people. We want a world where those who seek to deny dignity and the democratic process are held accountable for their actions if they try to stop others. We want a world where there is unity and peace, brought about through truth talking, brought about by love and nonviolent action. We want oppression ended, but not the destruction of people. We want and we hope that everyone, no matter how lost, can be redeemed. And if we should suffer in the cause of love, may we have the grace not to retaliate, but to learn, in order to save ourselves and our world from the barbarism of violence. We need to act now. Reverend King ended his sermon at the Riverside Church. We heard part of it before, but let me share the words that he ended his sermon with. He said, "Let us begin. Now let us rededicate ourselves to the long and bitter, but beautiful struggle for a new world. This is the calling of the children of God, and our siblings wait eagerly for our response. Shall we say that the odds are too great? Should we tell them that the struggle is too hard? Will our message be that the forces of American life militate against their arrival as fully human, and we send our deepest regrets? Or will there be another message of longing, of hope, of solidarity with their yearnings, of commitment to their cause, whatever the cost? The choice is ours. And though we might prefer it otherwise, we must choose in this crucial moment of human history. May it be so. Amen.
Each week, we take up an offering to support the work of our congregation. Since November of 2019, we have been working harder to support the community beyond our walls by giving half of the funds collected each week to a nonprofit organization that shares our UU values through an initiative called Share the Plate. It's a simple yet very powerful way for each of us to help heal the world. Our Share the Plate recipient for January is the Mission of Deeds. Mission of Deeds is a nonprofit, volunteer-based organization located right here in Reading, Massachusetts. It is working to break the cycle of poverty by providing beds, furniture, and household goods to families in need. Mission of Deeds is all about changing lives. Their clients are people of all ages, races, ethnicities, religions, and genders. They are vulnerable and struggling individuals or families, including those who are recently homeless, in a shelter, or fleeing domestic violence, as well as displaced veterans, refugees, the elderly, and those living with a disability. To donate online, use the Donate Now button on the church website or mail a check directly to UUCR. Unless otherwise specified, half of all donations will go to this month's Share the Plate recipient. As always, we recognize that your donation is generously given and it is very gratefully received. Thank you.
People get ready, there's a train a-coming. Don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is faith, hear the diesels humming. Don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord. People get ready for the train to Jordan, picking up passengers from coast to coast. Faith is the key, open the doors and boredom. Hope for all among those loved the most. There ain't no room for the hopeless sinner who would hurt all mankind just to save his own. Have pity on those whose chance There's no hiding place against the kingdom's throne. People get ready, there's a train a-coming. Don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is faith to hear the diesels humming. Don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord. You don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord. You don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord.
Good morning. I am Melissa Martin, your Member Services and Volunteer Coordinator. My pronouns are she and her. The details of what I'm sharing with you today can be found in this week's emailed update. This week, I have a half a dozen new offerings and special opportunities to share. Side with Love is the Unitarian Universalist Association's interfaith public advocacy campaign promoting respect for the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Side with Love confronts issues of exclusion, oppression, and violence based on identity. With the goal of creating beloved community, the campaign pursues social charge through advocacy, public witness, and speaking out in solidarity with those whose lives are publicly demeaned. 30 Days of Love is the celebration hosted by Side with Love that runs annually from around Martin Luther King Jr. Day through Valentine's Day. It's an opportunity to lift up the ways Unitarian, Universalists, and many of our partner organizations are building and organizing by taking bold, courageous action for intersectional racial justice. This year, 30 Days of Love will focus on 4 themes from a recently published report called Widening the Circle of Concern, which was developed by the Commission on Institutional Change, a UUA board commission group charged with researching, reporting, and making recommendations for transforming white supremacy and other oppressions in the institutional history and practices of the UUA and its 1,000 plus congregations and covenant communities. Each of the next few weeks, we will share a playlist or menu of activities for all ages in the categories of read, watch, participate, listen, and worship. We hope you'll find something meaningful to partake in. Tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., the Town of Reading's Human Relations Advisory Committee invites us to join them in a virtual celebration of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. The link to that celebratory video will be shared on their Facebook page. Later that day, we also have our second offering of the Adult Anti-Racism, Anti-Oppression book discussion for our UU Common Read of Breathe. This Wednesday is the long-awaited presidential inauguration day, and Reverend Hank will host a special watch party on Zoom for folks to gather and watch together beginning at 11:30. Later that evening, beloved family and caregivers of young people are invited to join UUCR staff and friends to reflect on the challenges of parenting or caregiving through these unprecedented times. Parents and caregivers are invited to please come to share your thoughts, silence, and participation in any way that works for you. For today, new visitors and friends are invited to join me for a special new visitor welcome at 11 a.m. Thank you for being a vital part of our congregational life.
Oh
Please join me by saying the words we say each week. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts. And the words of benediction come from the Universalist minister Clarence Skinner, who wrote that there are two alternatives and only two. First, which is unlikely, is that we unscramble our modern, independent culture, returning to separate and isolated lives. Such a world would not demand greatness. The other alternative is to expand our spiritual powers, that we vastly increase the range of our understanding and sympathy. There is no middle way. It is greatness or to perish. Our worship is over. Our service begins. Go in peace.